Okay, so to set up blended texturing in Wreckfest, notice we already have our texture and everything set up from before, so we're going to go over to our shading menu. We have the PBR default before. Our ground tile was this gray tile that looked like a square grid, sized up, so I don't know what the size of these tiles are, but for us they almost fit on our track according to the size of the actual wireframe. So the tiles were kind of matching our wireframe. You have a normal map, you have your specular map as well. For a blended texture, it works a bit differently, and the tile system we used here with only one texture for the entire map only needs one UV map, but the blend system actually needs two. So in order to start messing with that, you'll need 3 different textures. So I'm going to use sand, I'm going to use rock, and I'm going to use some sort of like riverbed material, and then you'll have to tell the game through this RGB map where you want each of those guys to go. And UV2 will control all of that stuff. So here I have my land, off-road, dirt stuff already here. We're going to change this around. We're not going to use the PBR default anymore. We're going to go up to the bug menu. We're going to change the shader here. Notice it sort of only shows a couple things. We can load more groups in. So we go load node group shaders. And then we go back to change shader. And notice there's a blend V5. So that should be good enough for us. Blend advanced is more complicated and something we can talk about eventually. But blend V5 has been good enough for me already. And the things you need in the blend V5, so I'm just going to delete all these guys. Delete, delete, delete. You need your blend map, and that's controlled by UV2, so I'll show you how to set that up. And you need your 3 materials, which will be controlled by red, green, and blue. Let's load those in. Red I'm going to have be like my most basic stuff, so my sand. So I'm going to load in an image texture connected to the sea here. To do that, I grabbed here, dragged it out. I chose image texture as the thing. I'm going to go look in my textures folder, and I believe the dirt is what I needed there. So that'll be my first material. We can also have normals for these, so we'll talk about that in a bit. But first material is going to be my dirt. We can see what it looks like over here. Boom. I took this from the game Monster Truck Madness, so that's almost like the default dirt texture for Sidewinder Canyon in Monster Truck Madness. My green, let's see, green, let's make that the rocks. So that's another image texture, and I'm going to pull in, this time, my rock. And notice both of these guys end in sub C. The reason for that is if we want a normal texture as well, we are going to want a sub NS on those. So I'll show you where to find that in the wiki as well, and link to it in the description. So our rock is a color palette, and then we'll have normals attached to it. Here's what the rock looks like, taken right out of Monster Truck Madness. And then finally, I'm going to have some sort of crusty riverbed stuff here. So what's this look like? Boom. You can zoom in here as well. Is this the riverbed? Doesn't look much like riverbed. Let's check it here. All right, so this is the riverbed material that we'll be using as well. Notice when you click on each of these different materials, does it change here? No. How about here? No. All right, but once we get our blend file going, we'll see how things change here. How does this blend file work? All right, so let's see if we can do this. Boom, I'm gonna go new, image texture, boom, I'm gonna go new, 1024 by 1024. I think my map is 256 by 256, so it doesn't need to be that detailed on here. So I'll just go 256 by 256. It does have to be square with dimensions, size, a power of 2 in order for the game to do what we want with it. The reason why I'm creating it within Blender here is because we're going to paint right in Blender to show where we want these textures to go, just as an example of how to set this stuff up. So what are we going to call it? I'm going to call it SWC Sidewinder Canyon sub blend. What am I supposed to call this? I have to go check here. Boom. All right. So looking at my snake stuff here from my Snake River Valley, Snake River Canyon track. Whatever you want, name that is specific to your track. So for that one, snake. Then sub blend sub C. All right. And it's not going to be a bmap. Ours is going to be a PNG. So that's the one that'll be red, green, and blue, RGB. The exporter will generate all the bmaps for us if everything is working properly. So here I'm going to call it SWC subblend sub C, and then I want it to be a PNG. And okay. I don't think it needs an alpha, but that's okay. I am going to make it RGB. I am going to make it red to start. And that looks good. We go boom, new image. There we go. So that's our blend file. Okay, let's see what it looks like over here. Boom, just nice and red. So that's good. And I am going to go here, and I'm going to hide my AI route so I can just focus on the textures. And this is the main stuff that we're setting up in this video. Our blend file and our 3 textures that connect to it. All right, the blend file is the thing that we're going to paint. So this guy, if you notice here on the blend v5, needs to be connected to a UV2. UV2. So we're on our terrain. That's what I have had selected all the time. That's what we want to see when we're editing all this stuff. So you select your terrain. You need to add a second UV map. So you go over here into your UV maps. We already have a first one. That'll control sort of like the number of times that the texture appears on our map. I'll show you that in the UV in a sec. And the second UV map will control where all this blended stuff shows up. Clutter, which is all of your various vegetation that the game can randomly generate for you, and so on. So I'm going to just call this guy UV map 2. Boom. Connected to the terrain. Good. Our blend is set up. We have our red guy connected, and we're ready to go. So once we have our second UV map, we move into UV editing here. I'm going to scroll out a bit here on both of these. Just go Z, zoom out a bunch. And what can you notice? If I hit A on here, remember we had zoomed out our whole grid so that this texture showed up as if it were gridded on our map. And we saw when we were in the game, it looked like a little grid all around. So this is controlling how many times the textures are overlapping. We're not using the ground tile anymore. We're going to use the dirt now for the red. So selecting nothing, we're going to see this thing overlapping a bunch. I think the way that we have it set up for now should be fine. You can zoom this inner out if you want more or less detail in any particular region on your stuff. And the thing that we have to focus on now is our second UV map. So where you find that thing, you can change your UV map here. Notice that UV map 1 and UV map 2 are mapped in the same way to this texture. That is not what we need for the blend file. That'll take anything that we color on the map or do with the blend file, which is supposed to say where our textures go on our map. If we have it set up this way, it's just going to repeat this stuff over and over a million times. So on your UV map 2, if you had already made a UV map 1 and stretched everything out, on your UV map 2, you're actually going to want to unwrap everything. So here's what I have. Since I have this nice square, when I unwrap, I just get a nice square here. I'm fine with this for the moment. When I color on my map using Blender, it'll work fine over here. We can actually switch to the blend is what we're going to be using to color on. And UV map 2 looks like this now. UV map 1 still looks like it did before. All right, so that's what the second UV map is doing. It's giving you a way to wrap your textures in a different way to another spot. So cool. UV map 2 is set up, and we are ready to start painting and blending. Let's go back to the layout here, and let's see what we're looking at. In UV editing here, I want to actually put myself onto UV map 2 so that I make sure I see red stuff. I don't want to paint over my textures in UV map 1. So I want to be in UV map 2, and I go back to my layout. See what we're looking at here. All right, so at the moment we have dirt. That's cool. That's what the red is supposed to do. Let's see. If we go to our shading, notice we have dirt all over the track. That's what red is supposed to be. If I disconnect and I connect the other one instead, there's my rock. Funny, huh? If I take that off and disconnect the other one instead, I have my riverbed material. All right. So boom, there we go. We could leave them all disconnected for the moment and paint everything. So if we zoom out and we look, we just have this nice red texture going on. We're on UV map 2 right now, which is why we see this. And we're going to paint some stuff so that we can connect these textures up and see different materials all over the map. That's the idea. So how do we do that? We want to go to texture paint here. I'm going to zoom this guy out to top view because I'm going to paint from the top. Look at the beautiful shading and everything. I have my route all shaded in here. Everything is red at the moment. What am I looking at here? I'm looking at my blend file. I think, am I still in edit mode or something? I don't know why the gray is still showing up here. But what did we say we wanted? I'm going to put riverbed material sort of where it looks like there's riverbed. So you can see kind of a river flowing through here. I was thinking of doing that blue for river. And yeah, so we select our blue over here. And we zoom in and we start painting on here and see if it works. So let's see. So zoom in and boom. I think, you know, like, oh, we don't really want red here. So it's sort of making a purple for us now, which we don't want. We want like full blue there. Maybe it's better to paint it white and then blue. But you really want to get this stuff fully blue. Do we have an opacity? Boom. Blend. What do I want? All right. So it looks like color's working for us. I'm not sure why it's not coloring the whole point, or the whole, like why some sections are not getting colored. Strange. But this is just for demonstration. You're going to want to open this up, and like probably what I would do if I were really being serious is, oh, take a screenshot of this. You know, zoom out as much as you can. Take a screenshot of this. Take it into GIMP or whatever your paint program is, and really paint this thing properly and carefully. The paint job does decently enough in Blender for us to give an example, but you take it into your paint program and get it all clean when you go to do the real deal. All right, so we're doing our riverbed stuff here. We're zooming in, do our riverbed. We can be kind of sloppy because maybe we'll paint the sides with the rock eventually. All right, but anyway, we have some blue here. This looks decent-ish. We'll see what happens with these like weird splotches, which I don't know why they're happening. I also don't know why we're seeing this other junk over here, this gray stuff. So I have to figure that out for us. Okay, so there's some blue. I also want to put some green, like on the walls. That's where the rocks are supposed to go. So I'm going to go over here, grab some green, zoom in a bit. I'm going to put those rocks here on the walls. Horrible painting. But just for example, we want some rock. Oh my goodness. You know, in GIMP or Photoshop or any other program, you can hold Shift and go in a nice straight line. Here, not so much, but cool that Blender has this at all. All right, boom. And yeah, the rock walls in this track, in Monster Truck Madness, are just around where you're driving. So, this should be good enough for the example to see the blend in action. That's from painting our texture. That is going on our SWC blend as far as we can tell. So let's see what happened to us here. We go back to our shading. Let's see. All right, notice, like I was saying, why is it repeated a million times? We must be on the UV1 here. Let's see. On our UV stuff, we're at UV2. Our UV1, how are we looking? That looks good. UV2 is here. I know what the issue is. Let's go back to our shader. So we got into all the painting and everything before we connected the shader to the UV2. It says here we've got to connect up the UV2. Let's double check in UV here. Yes, we're still on UV2. We can tell by how this is mapped. We go back to our shaders, and we need to connect this up to UV2. How do we do that? You grab this little purple node, drag it over. You need a UV map, so you can type up here, UV map. Boom, click it. That's what you want. And then you're going to select your guy right here, UV2. And boom, what do you notice? Hey, it's painted as we just painted it before. So, great. Now we're happy. Hopefully our stuff will work. So, red, we wanted the dirt. Green, we wanted the rock. And blue, we wanted the river stuff. And what do you notice is happening here? As we connect those nodes up, Blender is showing us where everything is starting to appear. Notice up here, we have the viewport shading on, and we can see everything sort of showed up as we wanted. Boom. So zooming in a bit, I'm going to go into flying mode. I'm going to hit Shift, the left apostrophe guy over there, and boom, what do you notice? Hey, Blender blended all this stuff together for us. We have our dirt, we have our riverbed, and flying in here, we have our rocks. They're not in the good position, so we'll want to go back and paint things properly. All right, so carrying on here, it is first thing in the morning, got the sun right in my face. It's supposed to be 100 degrees out here by the coast today in California, which is extremely unusual. So trying to do this early. When we left off, we had been looking at something like this. We got our riverbed stuff going on, we got our rocks, we have our sand. The way that we painted this on here was by painting over this blend file from right inside Blender. We talked about how to set up all the shaders and everything. One other thing I wanted to mention is green goes with our rock stuff. If you move over into the shading tab and you're still painting on your blend texture like this, you can just paint rocks wherever you want them. So you can, I'm going to control Z that, but you can fly around and put rocks all over wherever you happen to need them or want them. And you just make your way around the track and do your basic terrain textures this way if you want. So that's pretty cool that you can see all this stuff this way. Also, when I left off here, we had some gray stuff blocking us. To turn that off, you go to View, and you can turn on or off the UVs. So display texture UVs, no, we don't want that. So we're flying around our map, making our blend map just here in Blender. So that's pretty cool. I think that's about all there is to say for the blend stuff. The only other part of the blend that we need to set up in a little while is we have all the color stuff set up. So our dirt color file is a sub-C file here. We also need the sum-ins, which is our bumps and our specular stuff. You can read more about those things over here on the wiki. So if you go to the Wreckfest wiki and click on the track stuff, you can scroll down and look at the different materials that are available, and we're dealing with blend stuff. So we're down here, we're looking at a blend material. And this tells you how to name your materials inside Blender so that the game sees them and recognizes the stuff that you want it to recognize. So I think this first name is the name of your material, so the game doesn't care about that. You can call it whatever you want. The second one is telling the game what you're driving on, so the different driving surfaces can be found in here. The next one is the clutter, so that's the random vegetation you want to spread around, and I'm going to show you how to set up a clutter map in a second. And since we're using blend, we also need blend at the end. So let's go back in here, select our terrain, go over to our shader menu. Right now I'm calling it land. The type of road we're driving on is off-road dirt, so it's like bumpy gravel. We will put a clutter in. More about that in a second. I'm going to use my favorite, I think, Fields 07. We'll double check that in a second. And then we need to put blend at the end. You don't have to have all of these. You need to have a name. You should have what type of ground you're driving on. Clutter only if you have it. So these first two are fine. If you want to add random vegetation around, like we're going to do, you put that here. And if you're going to do blended textures, you put that there. You search for clutters, find the modding clutter page, and they're all listed here with what red, green, and blue goes to. So I chose Fields 07. It's the desertiest one. It's got palms, bushes, and things like that. And it comes from the scene file, foliage group 23 scene, in the files inside the game folder. So you can make your own versions of these, but you have to be careful because you can easily overwhelm the game's memory and stuff. So all of these things are just little planes with transparent texture on them. They rotate as you face them and stuff like that. All right, so how do we set up clutter in here? To set up clutter, we will need some clutter texture files. All right, so a lot like we did with the blend file here, we can also paint a clutter file from right within the game if we want to. And in order to do that, what I'm going to do for the purposes of this video is I'm going to go to the shading area here. I'm going to insert a new, so make sure nothing's selected. Click A, no, that's for all, Shift A. And we are going to add ourselves a texture, image texture. All right, I'm not going to connect it to anything at the moment. And I'm just going to make a new file here. Again, it doesn't have to be a huge file, it's just an RGB thing. So what do we need to call it? It should match the name of our blend pretty much. So SWC to start, sub clutter, sub mask. And I'm going to want this thing to be a PNG as well. So you have your clutter mask and you have your clutter color. I'm going to go 256 by 256. Does have to be square. Going to make a new image here. Boom. And now over here, when we're painting and stuff, we can work with that image. So our clutter mask is going to be here. Using this blend material, as long as this clutter mask and clutter color show up inside the game folder, it should use those things if you have a clutter tag. So how do we paint this clutter mask how we want it and see what's going on in the game? Let's go back over to the texture paint stuff. I'm on the clutter mask here. It looks like it's black, so you can select whatever texture you want to be painting on here. I do want black. Black will be nothing, so no vegetation in the black areas. And we'll paint areas where we do want some vegetation. This Fields 07, red's going to give us palms and small bushes, green large bushes, and blue palms. So we'll just do a bit of each and see what it looks like inside the game. All right, so green, yeah, let's put some green over here. Oop. I guess it's not connected to any UV at the moment. So we got to go connect it to a UV and then we can paint on it. All right, so back to the shader. Connect that to UV2, which is the one which matches your terrain mapping. And I'm not going to connect it over here because there's nowhere to connect it in Blend V5. Go back over to my texture painter and see if it works now. Before. Looks good on the black, so selecting mix over here. I have my black stuff. I don't want vegetation everywhere, just in certain areas. So let's put some green stuff up here. Whatever the green clutter tag is. Let's put some red stuff around, I don't know, somewhere near the beginning over here. It's not very bright red, huh? But that may be to do with just the shading. It looks just bright red over here. And then let's put some blue in there. Boom. Where should the blue go? I don't know. Can it go over the green? Something like that. We can go see if it worked in the game. But the idea is wherever you color red, palms and bushes will show up. Wherever you color green, just palms. Whatever you color blue, just bushes. Or whatever the plants are in that particular clutter tag. You can also mix colors. So green and blue can just mix. No, it's just coloring over. Okay, phew. Mix, had to turn the strength down so they'll actually mix. And red and blue is obviously purple, so you can have some red and blue stuff sort of scattered around. Or you can kind of like do some polka dots here and there, is what some people on the Discord recommend. Just polka dotting everything. Mm-hmm. All right, cool. Blue and green, what will it be for us here? We don't know. Okay, so we have our clutter mask. We'll have plants showing up in this area. It's connected to UV2 so that this texture is covering our whole terrain and the game knows what to do with it. We also need a clutter color file, so we go back over to our shaders. That also comes from UV2, so let's add another guy. So Shift A, let's add another image texture. Boom. Oops. Interesting. All right. I'm gonna just go new again. This one I am going to call SWC sub clutter sub color. All right, making my new image, and that thing I'm just gonna color gray. So I'm gonna go back to my texture paint. I pick out basic gray here in the middle. Let me see. Grab my paint can, and for whatever reason it is green, because we have to flip these things around. Crazy. All right, there's your gray. The clutter color, you know, it's for if you've got bushes out here, you can have some color variation. So you can have them be darker, lighter, brown, red, whatever. It's an RGB thing. Gray works for us. We just have to have this file in order to have the game be able to use clutter, or else we'll get an error. So you can mess with colors and stuff to see how that works. We have to go through and save all our images here. Boom, save as. We want to save it in the textures. I'm going to use a PNG. SWC clutter color. One thing I missed, sub T needs to be there. Sub T at the end. You can see all about that stuff here under the track modding guide. So when you look at your material stuff, it tells you the tags to use for everything. Track is the name of your texture, whatever you're calling it. I'm calling it SWC. The red stuff is what you have to have. Clutter mask sub T. Clutter color sub T. All right, cool. So that guy we saved up, our clutter color. We need to save our blend as well. I don't think that got saved. Save as. Is it here anywhere? No, it's not. So SWC blend sub C. Save that as a PNG. What else have we not saved? The clutter mask. I don't think we saved it, and we didn't call it sub T. So we're gonna save this guy with the proper ending, mask sub T. Save, and save the whole track. Anything else we didn't do? You just go through your textures. I think maybe that's good. I'm going to reopen this and hope that it has all the stuff with the right names. So go back to your shader, make sure everything is right here. It's not, we need the sub T's in here. So open this up, name it right in the first place, and you'll be happier. So this is the mask, clutter mask sub T. Well, it's pointing to the right file, even though it's not called the right thing in there. So that should be okay. We will see when we try and compile now. All right, so we got all these guys connected up. Let's try and export and see what happens. So we're going to export to a BGO3, choose our guy, and go see if everything went according to plan. Sidewinder Canyon, going into the track folder. Our textures are in here. Let's see if everything worked. Clutter mask, I do not see the bmap file that goes along with that. Just go according to name. The blend got a bmap, so I think it understood that. The clutter color didn't get the bmap file, and so we'll have to go check and see if that worked. Did our map compile? We go back to our track and we check. Our BGO3 we saved at 744, and the scene file also generated at the same time. So since I don't see any clutter bmaps in here, I'm going to double check that clutter is showing up in my stuff. So to do that, we've got to go to BagEdit. So into Wreckfest, BagEdit, open this thing up, and let's see if clutter is showing on our terrain. So we are working on Sidewinder Canyon here, and we need to look at the scene file here, and I'm just going to search for clutter. I have my terrain up here toward the top, and clutter will show up if we search here. All right, so waiting for search to work. All right, so back to Sidewinder. You can click through a bunch of stuff, but let's see if we can get the clutter just to show up. All right, so static cube map, minimize that. Result camera, no. Result camera target, no. Terrain is what we want to look at. So we're looking at our terrain part of our models and see if there's clutter in here. Scrolling down into the textures, it is pointing to the SWC clutter color bmap, which doesn't exist yet, and it is pointing to the mask as well, which doesn't exist yet. So we can generate these files in the following way. Back in Wreckfest tools here, we can use the build asset guy to build these bmaps we need. So I'm going to open this guy in a new window. I'm going to go to my Sidewinder Canyon folder where my textures are, and I'm going to generate those things that don't exist. They're showing up red in BagEdit. So grab your clutter mask PNG, drag it onto the build asset. If it works, it'll get you a bmap here. It can give you an error if your file is not a square with dimensions power of 2. So 2, 4, 8, 16, and so on. Ours is 256 by 256, so that worked. Our clutter color we need as well. Grab this, build the asset, boom. All right, there we go. So these two files are here now. Other things we can put in are, here's our river bed material. That is the color texture that we needed. We also need a bump texture and stuff, which doesn't exist yet, but we'll go in game and see how it looks. Okay, so everything should be good here. I'm going to build this one more time just for good measure, because it didn't take long. Export, boom, build this guy one more time, now that those files are there, and go check BagEdit and see if it recognizes it. All right, so we're back here, searching for clutter again. It should have turned a different color than red. X there, good. And then again, we have to look for our terrain. Here it is, and we're scrolling down looking for clutter. Boom, this one showed up. Clutter color sub T. This one is still supposedly missing, so SWC clutter mask sub T. Maybe I didn't name it right. SWC SCW. Oops. I see. Alright, so checked in BagEdit. Will it refresh and see this? I guess maybe the easiest way to do this is just to go back here, fix the names here as well, save it up one more time. So let's see, textures, SWC, we had the SCW, fix that, and you won't have to deal with this over and over. Back here, this is our clutter mask. We want to open up SWC clutter mask, boom, and then export one more time. And we can look at our textures, see if anything changed here. 52, nothing new was generated, so those guys are still there. And then we can check our BagEdit one more time, searching for clutter again. And boom, they're both blue now. So we're happy. We see we have 8 clutters on our map. That corresponds to the 8 different types of plants that can show up in that fields of 7 guy. So hopefully they're there. We'll fire up the game and see how things are looking. Okay, so here we are on the track after lots of troubleshooting. When we first opened it up, after the clip you just saw, everything was purple. There was clutter, so there's vegetation stuff all over the map, so not where we painted it and wanted it to be. The purple was because we were missing the macro normal map. I'll show you that in a second. And then the clutter was all over the place because I had used PNG for the clutter mask instead of a TGA, so the bmap didn't get generated properly. So I'll show you that too. But anyway, here's the random vegetation that scatters around. Here is the stuff that we painted on the sides of the hills. The rocks are way too dark for me. The riverbed is too light. And there are different things, but stuff is showing up basically where we put it. Much fine-tuning would need to be done here. But yeah, this is what you can do with blended textures. You add a clutter tag, and you'll get vegetation wherever you paint it on that clutter mask file. So yeah, you're going to make mistakes. Things are not going to work right the first time, even when you've done this a few times. So, stick with it. Ask questions. Check out BagEdit for troubleshooting, and so on. Good luck. Good luck. We'll do a little wrap-up and talk about the files that you need in order for all this stuff to show up properly, and then that'll be the end. Okay, so here is the final shading setup I ended up with for the map that we just saw in-game. It's just a blend v5 setup. You've got your blend map that we painted in-game. PNG was just fine for that. You have your 3 different textures we're using, so my dirt, my rock, my riverbed. Those things are all connected up to their corresponding spots here. And the main reason for using this is so we can see it right in Blender as we go along. We can paint our textures on as we saw and stuff. I do have a macro, sub-macro 7s file. I'll show you what that looks like. It's just purple. So SWC, the first part of the name matches, and then macro 7s. If you don't have one of these files, then your game can show up looking all crazy. So mine was all purple with dark splotches and stuff all over the place when I left that out. So make sure you have one of those and its associated bmap file. Also, there's a clutter guy. Mine is just gray. Clutter color, or not clutter, excuse me. There's a color guy, looks like this. The purpose of this texture is to add color variation to your terrain. So potentially you could go into the painting thing here and choose your color, link it to your UV2, and you can go around and add some additional color to your basic texture layout that you're using. So that's the point of that guy. The game just looks for this and the normal map automatically based on the name of your blend file and the fact that you said you're using blend. The other things that we painted were the clutter mask. So we painted this thing up inside here, and the important thing, like where we ran into trouble, is that I had used a PNG instead of a TGA. The PNG didn't generate the bmap properly, so changing it to TGA format and regenerating the bmap worked inside the game. So for your clutter mask, use a TGA, and if things aren't working, try a PNG, but I think TGA is the one. And yeah, the final thing we had was the color. Again, that's for adding color variation to your vegetation. I just have like a basic gray here, but you can have your vegetation vary in color as you go throughout the track using this. Again, the wiki has the list of all the stuff you need. You have your blend telling where you want your different textures to go. You have your 3 texture files that you're going to use. I had dirt, rock, riverbed, and then each of those has its own normal. You'll want those as well. The game automatically looks for these based on the name of these textures. The normals I am using, I just took basic ones from the example track. These probably also have to be TGAs to generate the right bitmap. The macro normal we saw, mine is a TGA. If you don't have one of those, things will not look right in the game, so make sure you have that in its bmap. The color, for color variation we talked about. The clutter mask and the clutter color, again, this needs to be a TGA, at least on my machine, so use a TGA. Yeah, I hope all this is helpful to you. If you run into trouble, come ask on the Discord. Somebody will help. Good luck out there, and see you on the next one.